Okay, hello everybody. I am Alina Zarati, the Heart AmeriCorps Program Coordinator. So this is the third part of our webinar series, How to Resolve Conflict, also addressing how to raise issues with your manager. So today's recording will be recorded and it will be shared next week through email with all of our members. So for whatever reason, if you need to leave during the middle of the webinar, feel free. We will be sharing out the recordings of it. Also, if you ever need to reference it later on, you'll have access to it that way as well. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, make sure you type them into the chat box. I will be addressing all questions at the end of the webinar. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, introduction. So, it is your manager's job to make you successful, so make sure that you are successful at your job. So, don't be afraid to speak up, but pick your battles wisely and start the conversation successful. Or set up the conversation for success. So let me see. Okay. There we go. Okay. So make sure that you are choosing. Don't assume that your supervisor knows where an issue is, and don't be afraid to speak up about it. But you do want to make sure that you're being professional and respectful about it. Again, you want to set the conversation up to be successful. So, try to be as positive as possible about it, and also consider, timing and the conversation itself as you prepare for it. Okay, there you go. So, finding the best time. I thought this cartoon was really benefiting for it. So it says, I hacked into your fitness band and analyzed your decision making under different conditions. When you're hungry, tired, or stressed, you make terrible decisions. And the boss says, well, how often is that? Only when you're awake. So maybe it'll be a hard time to find the best time to talk to your manager, because that is the situation. But you definitely want to make sure that you're talking to your manager or your site supervisor, and you're scheduling a good quiet time for a one-on-one conversation. So you want to be avoiding distractions. So maybe if you're working on an after-school program where you have a lot of kids, maybe having a conversation like this might not be so beneficial whenever all the children are in the classroom. There'll be a lot of distractions, and of course it won't be that quiet, and it'll be really hard to have a one-on-one conversation. Avoid disrupting work of others. So if you need to have a conversation with your supervisor and they're already helping another member with something else, maybe it's a little more beneficial to hold off and wait till that manager is completely free and able to focus directly on what exactly your issue is. Being able to do this is it will make a big difference in the conversation, just because it'll be easier for your manager to, one, listen to you and be able to effectively understand the problems that you're coming with, and also it'll feel better for you that this issue is important to you, obviously, because you're bringing it up, but it's also important. It also shows that it's important to your manager that they're willing to separate time in their day to be able to face that problem and work out a resolution that can be beneficial to the both of y'all. So approaching the conversation itself, and this is a Michael Scott reference. So sometimes I'll start a sentence and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way. So we definitely want to make sure that you're not doing a Michael Scott right from The Office. He has some good qualities, but not the best for conversation. So you definitely want to make sure that you know the specifics of what you want to say and what you want to get out of the conversation. So really practice with yourself. Have an idea of what's the actual problem that you're having and why are you having this problem. So maybe if your problem is that you don't feel as fulfilled in your job because maybe there aren't as many kids at the program as what we initially anticipated. Why is that happening? Why are the kids not there? Is there anything that you can do to maybe help get more kids in the door? Those are things that can be really beneficial to figure out, and then can be beneficial for both parties, right? So not only are you able to get more kids in the door, but also you feel more fulfilled in your role because you're helping more kids within the community. And then also have a clear idea of what you want out of the conversation. So whenever you do leave the conversation, you can reflect and figure out if, one, if you communicated effectively, and two, if your supervisor listened to you effectively, which communicating and understanding are two different things. So sometimes it might take one or two tries to actually get the outcome that you are anticipating. But if you're able to have honest conversations each and every time and you reflect back on them, then you're able to say that, maybe there's improvement on X, but you really want an improvement on X, Y, and Z. And that can definitely be addressed in multiple conversations, or it could just take one time and a really good understanding manager in it, is understand and, a new plan is in place to be able to approach or to solve those problems. Like I said, know what you want to say, be specific, be honest and objective, acknowledge your positives. So acknowledge things that are going well. You definitely don't want to go in there and just, say everything negative that you've ever disliked about the program or disliked about the company. You definitely want to give some positives. And then know what you're trying to get out of the conversation. Have a solution to offer. So although, yes, I understand it is a problem that you are facing, also have some solutions that you think could be a good solution for the problem. So again, if it's that you're not being fulfilled and you would like to be in the program, maybe saying that, is it possible for us to pass out flyers? Is it possible for us to put more signs around the apartment complex? Maybe doing like a communal dinner, just ways of getting the community engaged and, really trusting that, this is a safe place that they can send their kids to, and really letting them know about the amazing programs that are offered through that space and that the AmeriCorps members are doing. So it could be really beneficial to have those solutions already ready for your manager, and also take some of the work off of them of having to figure out like, oh, I have this AmeriCorps member that isn't really happy with their service. Now what do I do? You're already solving that for them. You're making it a little easier to really face the problem and approach it in a positive light. So moving forward, you definitely want to come up with a plan, be respectful of the final decision, and follow up with your supervisor on how the plan is working and collect evidence of issues that are not resolved. So you want to respect whatever ends up happening, the final decision of your manager. It might not go the way you intended, and I mean, that's life, unfortunately. Not everything goes the way that we plan or the way that we want things to go. So be okay with either way. Be okay with it going in your favor. Be okay with it not going in your favor. Just have an understanding of what your next step is. Don't give an ultimatum. So you don't want to say, I need more kids at this program to feel fulfilled. If not, I'm leaving. Because you'll most likely get the latter of the two. You'll be asked to leave just because it doesn't show very professional to give ultimatum. I understand that in some situations that's kind of a last resort, but that's truly how it should be treated, a last resort. An action plan hasn't even been put into place. If this is the first time you're having this conversation, maybe it's not time for an ultimatum at all. Maybe it's just time for this is a problem that I'm facing, and this is something I want you as a manager to be aware of, and is there any way that it can possibly be changed? And that's completely professional. If anything, you're really showing that you're interested in being very involved and a very good member for the program, because not only are you seeing this problem that's happening, but you're also wanting to address it. You're not just sitting there and letting it wreak havoc for the whole program. You're making it a better program for everybody, not just yourself. So along with that, if the final decision isn't what you wanted, give it a fair chance before you readdress it with your supervisor later. But you're more than welcome, and we strongly recommend that if you have problems, then give it a month, give it a month and a half, give it some time, and let the new program or the new schedule or whatever that you both agreed on, let it take place and see how it goes. See if now you're more comfortable with your job, see if you feel more fulfilled, see if now you're getting along better with your coworkers, or whatever the problem is, see if it's actually working out better than what it was before. On both cases, if it is and if it isn't, I would strongly recommend following up with your supervisor. So communicate on how the plan is working. So is it going good? Is it going bad? And then have strong evidence about items that are not resolved. So let's say the same example of not being fulfilled and not having enough kids in a program. So let's say that the solution was for the member to work 2 days out of the week at a facility that was a little bit larger and had more children. And the other 3 days, the member would still work at the regular small-scale facility. So maybe, yeah, she's solving the problem of, feeling a little bit more fulfilled in her role because she is, now being able to be with a lot more children. But at the same token, maybe, she feels like she's only able to be there half time with the children. So maybe she still doesn't feel fulfilled because she's not able to make meaningful relationships with the children, which can make a big difference. Also, if you have evidence showing that now I'm not able to make as many real impactful relationships with the children because now I'm only seeing them every other day. That wasn't initially what I anticipated. Maybe, recruiting more children for one site and me being at one site will be more beneficial. But give it time. Give it time for the plan to kind of work itself out. If it isn't working, have strong evidence of the issues that are not resolved. And it's completely fine to go back to the drawing board and try another plan. And, if the plans don't work and there's still the issue, maybe it's time to have a more serious conversation, but we definitely want to try and tackle as many problems ahead of time. And it's surprising how many quick fixes there are for problems, especially during the AmeriCorps term, that can be easily resolved and also make a big difference on your day-to-day service. And just your feeling that you receive whenever you do go and serve, maybe it's not as stressful, maybe less chaotic. It just can be really beneficial and make a big difference on your day-to-day life within your service term. Okay, so I do want to give a couple of sample scripts just in case you ever are in a situation like this and you maybe never been in a situation where you have to speak to your manager. It might be a little nerve-rattling. Remember to stay calm, breathe through it. They're human just like you. These can be maybe the problems that you express are problems that other people have. It can be a lot more beneficial for everybody at the organization rather than just yourself. So keep that in mind as well. Stay positive about it. Okay, so script number 1, needing more support. So you could potentially say, thank you for making the time to sit down with me. You know how important this program is for the community, and therefore how important it is to me. I'm really struggling on moving forward through, and part of the problem is I need more guidance and support in my daily tasks. I'm struggling to balance all of my duties, and I'd really like us to find a way for me to be a little as productive as possible. And I have a couple of ideas. I would love to hear your thoughts too. So that is a great way of being able to communicate to your manager and just have an opening line of, I need more support. And that's an easy way of just being able to communicate to your manager of how you're currently feeling. So in an ideal world, you have the perfect supervisor who has the perfect balancing of managing your projects without micromanaging you. They always know when issues arise and how to resolve them for you. And you never have to potentially have awkward conversations with them about problems at your workplace. But unfortunately, we do not live in a reality where supervisors are magically all-knowing. We're not wizards or anything like that. And sometimes, you do need to have conversations with your manager about what they could do better. While this can be daunting, there are ways to go about having a conversation with your supervisor that will end up with you both getting what you wanted without jeopardizing your reputation as a hard worker or a team player. Remember, your supervisor's job is to make you as successful as you can be. But there are some steps that you should take to ensure that you are addressing issues in a mature and professional manner. So when approaching your supervisor, there are some best practices to keep in mind. So as we spoke about before, make sure you're scheduling at the right time for you and your supervisor to meet. Set aside a designated time for you to talk, avoiding springing on important conversations at a busy time. Give both of you and your supervisor time to finish any distractions before focusing on the conversation. Make sure you keep the conversation private. Find a quiet corner where you are able to speak freely and not disrupt others. Also keep the meeting as small as possible. If other team members share your concerns, a one-on-one conversation can open doors to a larger group meeting, may not. So once you set up the meeting, be sure that you are mentally ready to have a game plan. Know what issues you have to address and how you want to address them. Your tone and choice of words can have a big impact on how your message is received. You should be honest about your feelings, but also be objective and fair. Even if there are some big negatives that you feel your supervisor needs to address, you should also acknowledge the positives and things that are going well. We did speak about this a little earlier. So this will show your supervisor that you're looking at the big picture and that you are aware of how all the pieces of your work fit together. It'll also soften the sting of criticism that you may be giving and indicate to your supervisor that you recognize their efforts to make your work environment a productive and happy one. Finally, know that what you want to get out of the conversation, like how we said earlier. This will help give the conversation some direction and give your supervisor an idea of what you'd like to see change. Try to also come up with possible solutions for your supervisor to consider. Again, not ultimatums. Even if he or she ultimately decides to go in a different direction, providing solutions shows that you're a team player thinking about long-term impacts that will the long-term impacts that will be placed on your colleagues and as well as yourself. You'll be showcasing your problem-solving skills and minimizing the risk of being perceived as just a whiner. In the end, the decision is your supervisors. Respect the decision and their experience, information informing their decision. They probably have more knowledge about how the decision will impact the team down the line. For example, if you're working for a nonprofit, restrictions on how grant money is used or what information must be reported to the donors can inform how the program will run. So just an easy example. Okay, let's see. Okay, so in our first script, we making sure that you designate a time to talk, emphasizing your commitment to your work, professionally state the issue without attacking your supervisor, and specify what you needed help with and what you wanted to be finding, what part you want to be finding the solution. So continuing on our needing more support sample, you could talk about priorities. So could we talk about my previous duties so that I have a better understanding of what I should be focusing on when there are competing tasks, and what resources are available to me to ensure that I can fulfill my duties effectively and efficiently. Specifically, I have task A and B, which both require my full attention every day. These tasks overlap for a period of 15 minutes, and I have trouble completing both at a high standard that I would like to perform. I think it would be helpful if, for the brief overlap, a team member could be designated as a support to ensure that those tasks are successfully completed. I am more than willing to assist my team member at another point in the day where they need support as well. So as we continue into the script, you can see how the person is very clearly expressing the issue that they're having, all the way down to the amount of time that they're having that issue, and then also giving, a way to resolve the problem. So by saying that they're able, if it's possible, to have another member support them during that time, and then they would be able to support that member later on whenever they were a little bit more free. So that's offering a solution to the problems they brought up at hand. An easy example of going a little bit further into the sample, something that I hear often from members is, whenever the kids are leaving a program, especially if it's like an after school or summer program, whenever the children are leaving and you're trying to get them ready to go home, and talking to parents and trying to figure out if the children have everything that they brought and, whatever art and crafts that they made for that day. It can be kind of overwhelming having to juggle all of those things at once while also moderating the kids that are still there. So, maybe during that 30 to 15 minutes, whenever the children are leaving, or maybe whenever you're handing out lunch, or just whenever things overlap and it gets really stressful, those couple minutes of your day could be like the most daunting. But at the same time, even just asking if possible to have an extra line of support there could be really beneficial, and it's a lot easier to manage a whole bunch of tasks whenever you have other people there helping you out. And maybe it's not clear to your managers that that's something that you need, so it's definitely beneficial to commonly just express that that's something that you're facing and a problem you're having, and it can be as simple as a quick fix as well. So again, within the script, they gave specific details, offered a solution that cast you as a team player, and created a concrete plan for improvement that satisfies everybody. So we're going to step into our second script. So this one is about unfair feedback. So as an AmeriCorps member, depending on the type of term you serve, you could potentially do a midterm evaluation, but everybody does have to complete an end-of-term evaluation. So this might be something that could directly hit home home for some of you. I hope not. But in the case it does, then of course we want you to be prepared to have that conversation with your site manager. So in this sample, it reads, I thought really hard about the feedback you shared with me regarding, and then you would state the feedback that you feel is inaccurate. I see where you're coming from. I wanted to let you know that I am, and then you would say what you're doing to address the problem. I also wanted to talk about the feedback that you believe was unfair. I was caught a bit off guard when you expressed so much concern, but it occurred to me that, and then explain why there's that misunderstanding that you're having, and then give the evidence of why that's backing up the misunderstanding. I hope that makes sense. So let's say, for example, the critique is that you're on your phone too much. So you would say, I wanted to talk about the critique of me being on my phone too much on the site. I was caught a bit off guard when you expressed so much concern, but it occurred to me that I am on my phone to log the food that we hand out to the children, so I can understand how there was a misunderstanding. And then your support could be that you leave your personal phone, and you can even say, I normally, or I usually leave my personal phone, you know, off-site or in my car or whatever. So I'm only using the company's phone to access the website to be able to track meals or track students. And that's a very easy way of saying, like, yes, I am on my phone, but it's not that it's my personal phone, it is the company's phone, and I am tracking meals or tracking students, and maybe there was some miscommunication there or misunderstanding. And then you would follow it through with, I thought it might be helpful for us to communicate a bit more regularly so that you are more aware of my progress on various projects. And then you would make a suggestion of how often you would want to meet, and also how to avoid a misunderstanding in the future. You know, a regular email, or maybe a short weekly meeting, or maybe, you know, just a real quick, like, everything's going good, we're doing great, just check in real quick, you know, at the beginning or the end of the day. Like, that's very beneficial to have and to be able to do. Okay, so you want to make sure that no matter what you're bringing up with your manager, that you're stating the issue in a professional, non-attacking manner. You want to be able to provide a suggestion to a solution to a problem that's at hand. And you want to make sure that at the end of the meeting that you have both, your manager and yourself, have agreed to a concrete plan for improvement that then addresses the needs that you had and that they're being met. It's very important to be able to walk out of that meeting and be able to reflect back and see, you know, give it a month, give it a couple weeks to see the improvements that are being made by the new plan. If things aren't happening, again, meet with your manager and communicate and have evidence of why it's not working out. The evidence could be as easy as reflecting in a journal and just having the different dates of different situations that happen and why you're still maybe stressed out or maybe, you know, still needing more support. Just have it very clear so that it's easier to present and easier to understand on the manager's behalf. Okay. Of course, you know, never give ultimatums. You want to be very respectful about it. Maybe even let them know that it's just something that you feel could be addressed through the program and just a way to make the program stronger. Go in positive. Go in with a calm mind. You never want to have a conversation with somebody whenever you're still angry about what you're going to talk about. So go in with a calm mind. Go in level-headed, because you definitely want to be able to express yourself without getting too emotionally attached. Okay. Let's see. Okay, So at this time, I will be looking at the chat box for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to come into the chat box, and I'll be going through those to answer them. We had one member from our national team say that their managers were so great to talk to and truly supported any issues or conflicts that came to focus. I'm so glad to hear that. That's really what we strive for. We really strive that, you know, if you do have to have conversations like this, then it's effortless and it's not, you know, it's not pulling teeth. But at the same token, if, you know, if you were in a situation where you had that type of line of support with your managers, and it's always beneficial just to know what your options are. So another comment, just another good tip of advice. So each day, the members would encourage each other to keep the mission or the focus on why they wanted to participate with the feeding program. I know through the AmeriCorps program, it's not easy. I know it's not easy. It's, you know, it's managing that living stipend. It's managing the amount of hours that you need to complete. It can be very emotionally taxing. I know that. I've completed 2 AmeriCorps terms myself, and each of them were equally as hard, even though the scope of them were very different. But if you can remember the reason why you wanted to do it in the first place, then it makes it a lot easier to show up and continue to serve day in and day out. And also a lot easier whenever you're going to speak to your manager or going to speak about, you know, problems that you're having, because it shows that not only are you committed to the mission of or the objective of what you're trying to do through your service terms, but it also shows that you're really wanting to make your AmeriCorps service as impactful as possible by making sure people in next service terms really have a good experience and really growing the program to be the best that it can. Okay, I'll give it a couple more minutes for any other questions. If you ever have problems or questions later on, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at alina@equalheart.org. And also give me a phone call. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions come in, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I would ask you to stay on for our next one. So our next webinar will be starting promptly at 1:30, and it will be an ambassador for service. So if you are interested in staying on, I please recommend that you do. If not, then thank you for tuning in. And again, if you ever need a line of support or if you need to communicate a problem that you're having during your service term, please feel free to reach out. And sometimes it's an easy fix. Sometimes, you know, it takes a couple tries, but there's nothing that we can't try to at least solve or at least, you know, try and make it easier for a service term on for our members. Okay. With that being said, I'll be closing out. Again, we'll be starting our next one promptly at 1:30.